Hi, it's Stu, and this is going to be a book review video, and it's going to be of the last 6 books I read because I'm kind of losing track in all of my TBRs and weeks and Libby shelves and stuff. And what a fantastic place to be. Yay, I'm going to take a moment to celebrate that I finished 2 physical copies of books that I checked out from the public library, and I have not checked out physical books from the public library in at least 5 years. So I'm happy to be back doing that, or at least exploring that as one of the options and ways in which I'm bookish. I'm not feeling great today. I'm feeling a little low energy and low emotional, yeah, just low, and I don't know why I'm sharing that other than to say that, that we all have days like that, I guess, and today's one of those days for me. And so I'm hoping that making this book video, is sort of helpful, if not helpful, distracting, right? And then once it's done, I'm going to go walk in the sun. So about the books, because that's why I'm here in this video. The first one I'm going to talk about is Big Chief by John Hickey. This book is written by an author who is a member of the, I'm going to read the band, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong. I apologize. Lac de Flambeau band of the Lake Superior Chippewa, so of the Anishinaabe people. And recently I read All Fours by Louis Edrich, who's also Chippewa, Anishinaabe people. And then I read The Girl Who Sang to the Buffalo, which is written by Kent Newborn, who is a white author who got permission to write the story of a Lakota man who then goes on a search into Anishinaabe Ojibwe territory. This book was set in Wisconsin, and I haven't read a book set in Wisconsin in a while, and it was on a fictional, like a made-up reservation. I really appreciated that this book gave some perspectives and insights into disenrollment, which is a topic that is very serious. It's very poignant and contemporary, and there are a lot of different perspectives to consider when talking about disenrollments. And I wish I could read 5 or 10 more books showing multiple different perspectives of disenrollment. I think Hickey did a good job of presenting some characters with some different sort of takes on the implications, reasons for, and impacts of disenrollments. I really also very much appreciated the exploration of what it means to belong, of indigeneity, of what it means to be family. I really liked the main character. I really appreciated how Hickey developed him with all kinds of flaws, but also his humanity and his goodness really shone through. So he was able to develop a likable, somewhat lighthearted main character in a very complex way. He's also able to address some really heavy and complex issues with humor. And there were some places I thought this book was going to go, and it didn't. But, who am I? Honestly, who am I? Other than just to be a reader of this book and go where the author takes me, and that's how I feel about this book. I so grateful to have read this book. Would recommend this book to a lot of people. Especially I have a lot of friends who don't even, when I say disenrollment, they give me the blank stare. They don't even know what I'm talking about. So if you're someone who has no idea what disenrollment is, read the book and then start maybe looking it up. This book is for you, to give you some human perspectives of what it is. The other book that I read was Denzi Sena's Color Television. took it back to the library. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a review video, but why not? I'm going to show you Miranda July All Fours because I still have it. I haven't unrolled it yet. And there are a lot of similarities between those two books. And I think when I'm talking about Color Television, I'll talk about it like also in juxtaposition to this book, comparing and contrasting a little bit. So in Color Television, we have an author who is also working for a local college, by locals, somewhere in the LA area. And she needs to publish a book in order to get tenure. Her husband is also a teacher, an instructor at a local college, and he teaches art, but he's never going to be up for tenure. And his passion and his purity he has a lot of passion and purity around art, and his value and integrity is very clearly defined for him. And for the female protagonist, there ensues a lot of compromise and confounding situations, and sort of desperately trying to make changes to her life so that she can, well, in a lot of ways, afford to live in LA, right? Work a livable wage. So this in of itself, like LA as a setting, was such a testament to, if two working professionals can't afford to live in LA, what is the sort of the housing crisis? And there's some exploration of that in the book. I think there's a lot of similarities because in both cases, these women discover that this life that they're living, and both of them are artists in some way. This is a visual artist, and the other was a writing artist. What are they willing to compromise, or what have they compromised, right? As women, as artists, as mothers, to be able to be true to themselves, to be true to their art, and to meet all of the demands met on them. In both cases, they're liars. They're liars. They're little liars, and they embark, especially with their married partners, their nesting partners, when in this case they're married to men, they lie to them. They embark in a lot of lies. And I found it really interesting that both of these authors were able to make me have I liked the characters, even though they were liars. Now, I'm not going to be all high and mighty. I understand everybody lies, but to a certain degree, and there's a lot of philosophical conversation we can have about truths and nothing but truths and omission of facts, etc. But in these cases, both of these women explicitly lie, right? They lie and they spin a web of lies. In Color Television, as well as in All Fours, of course, they have then to live up to the consequences of the lies, as what would happen usually when authors write characters that write lies. And in both cases, there's an interesting exploration of sort of what led into sort of the disenchantment and disillusionment in some cases. In the case of All Fours, clearly perimenopause is explored as a reason why things just feel upended in this person's life. That's less clear in Color Television. What's more clear is that she's desperately just trying to figure out where the compromise is so that she can, make it all make sense and also afford to meet the special needs of her son and make her life, marriage, etc., all work in LA. The next book that I read, in fact, I listened to. So I'm going to say this as a disclaimer. You're going to hear me say it many times, perhaps. I'm learning how to listen to books. I very much appreciate that it's a medium that can be used because it's accommodating. It is not one that I am most accustomed to, and therefore don't favor it, and sometimes maybe think that I didn't enjoy the book because I was listening to it, not just, as much as I might have if I were reading it. So as that is a disclaimer, Miss Morgan's Book Brigade by Janet Skelton Charles, I listened to. And I think what I'm going to say next is a testament to how much I liked or didn't like the book. So I was recently, just today, at a thrift shop. I just happened to be in a neighborhood where there was one, and I hadn't been there in like 3 months. So I was just curious about my discernment and the kind of books they had there now. And the Paris Library was there, and multiple different kinds of editions were there. And I didn't pick it up. So I think, that was sort of the rubber meeting the road and me deciding how much I liked or did not like this book. This book delivered as a historical fiction. This book, very much like The Women by Kristen Hanna, explicitly addresses the problems with, or the conundrum of, not telling women's stories, especially in our very war-focused, like how we tell history is by telling about the wars that we're in, sort of paradigm. And I am sure it's quite clear, is what I mean to say, that this author did an abundant amount of research on the protagonist of this book, whose picture is there, who goes by Kit in the book, and really worked to bring her story alive. I found that the technique of going between 1918 and using the first person to tell the story of Kit, to 1987, using the third person to tell the story of a woman named Wendy Peterson, who works at the New York Public Library, as Kit did, and is trying to research Kit's life and experiences and what are called the cards, the women who volunteered and, or in Kit's case, got paid to go to northern France, near the Red Zone, to help bring books and reading and literature to the villages there. I liked that going back and forth. I liked it. Writing in Wendy Peterson really sort of made the book be able to tell the story of how hard it is to piece together women's stories, and the part where women's stories are, shoved in the back of an archive and or buried, very literally, as told in this book. And so I appreciated that writing tactic. I didn't find this to be, other than, a compelling story and definitely historical fiction, I didn't find the writing to be incredibly compelling. That's probably why I didn't pick up the Paris Library, but I could regret my decision, and then if I see it again, pick it up. I have definitely several people. I definitely, like my mom, is not a reader, but folks such as my mom or of my mom's generation, I think would really love this book. I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad that I know. Thank you, Janet Skillsleen Charles, for bringing me the story of Jessie Carson, who's called Kit, because I am a better person for having known her story. The next book about books was Welcome to the Hyeonyeomdong Bookshop. And this book, when I made the TBR video, I said, okay, this is going to be heartwarming and cozy. And it even says on the back, the heartwarming Korean smash hit. The bookshop is cozy. The setting is somewhat cozy. I think this book isn't not cozy, and it's not heartwarming, but I think when it's reduced to that, it's not. It's a lot of other things. Very much an existential exploration. And I think what I can really read into this book, not being from the Korean culture and only having lived there 1 year of my life, now more than 20 years ago, and not speaking the Korean language, but this wonderful translation by the translator Shauna Tan. These are folks who are going through changes, not just always in their life, but it feels like the culture cultural expectations in society is changing. So, disappointing parents with divorce, disappointing parents by not going to university, finding the meaning of life outside of imposed cultural norms, or figuring out how you fit, or if you do or do not fit in a society that changes its cultural norms. Pretty heavy stuff, right? So if you're going into this book thinking it's just heartwarming and something like a little bit like What You Need You'll Find in This Library, no, these characters are well developed. There's cultural nuances that I think I won't be able to get as a non-member of the culture, but this exploration of, and the literal referring to philosophers and writers who attack the existential question of what does it mean to live a happy and or purpose-filled life, then that's what this book is about. This book is pretty deep, and if you give it a chance to be something more than cozy and heartwarming, it's going to make you think about a lot of things. It presents it in a way that is also just absolutely delightful for me. Man, I could recommend this book to a lot of people. And I mean, look at this beautiful, pristine copy. I'm going to put this back into a Little Free Library because, I mean, they deserve them. Little Free Library deserves to have popular, although a little bit backlisted, beautiful, pristine books like this. A little bit along the line of trying to find the meaning of life, and certainly the meaning of happiness, and certainly what it means to be a career trajectory, and certainly still about books and loving books, is Must Love Books by Shauna Robinson. If you asked me what category this book would be in, I would call this a romance. And if you've watched any video that I've done, you're going to hear me say I'm not a romance gal. I want to give all genres a chance, but romance is not, it's not my favorite. It's really, I'm not the romance audience. I'm way too cynical about love. Like in All Fours and in Color Television, this protagonist is a liar. She's lying and deceiving to everybody. Unlike in the other two, I couldn't really feel compelled to forgive her for her lies and deception. And I didn't really appreciate how, in the end, she doesn't really suffer any consequences from them. Well, they're meant to be kind of like a learning curve, but I mean, she hurt people. And I know that she's struggling with guilt. I'm struggling with how that makes it okay. That's me. That's just me. I appreciated how this author explored suicidal ideation, mental health, lack of security. I appreciated the introspective way in which this person, the protagonist, experienced being the only Black woman in a very white field, which was publishing, and how that made her feel othered, and the ways in which that also impacted her sense of self, sense of belonging, and her mental health. I found this protagonist, like, I kind of maybe missed because I was listening to it at the age, but I found her acting very young, where, for instance, I found the male love interest to not be acting very young, to be acting like somewhere in his 30s, and this protagonist is like 21 in my mind. I am making all kinds of ageist comments right now, so for sure, put me back in my lane. But because I was confused, she felt young in some places that didn't seem to match. That's what I would like to say. I think a lot of people would like this book. This is like a book. If you like books, you would like this book. If you're a romance person, this is a romance. And I'm glad that this came off my shelf. This was a right reading challenge to read it in. And I, wouldn't give it all glorious reviews, but it did have some redeeming parts. The Working Theory of Love by Scott Hutchins. It doesn't really fit into the prompt, but I thought, okay, because of a theory, I'm just going to pull it off my shelf and read it. So it'd been sitting there for a while. I picked this up at a local thrift store, and it has the little free library stamp in it, which I said in the haul video and in the TBR video. And so I'm really happy to get this. I feel like since it has a little free library stamp, never for sale, although I did buy it at a thrift store, I can put it back into the ecosystem where, I don't know, where I feel it belongs. I'm going to just say that both of these books, the setting was San Francisco. And the setting of San Francisco is very much worked. Actually, the housing situation in San Francisco, the BART, like the public transportation system, San Francisco industry and gentrification is mentioned in both books. It was kind of fun to read them literally back to back in the same setting and just really stay in San Francisco, from the publishing industry to the tech industry. I found this book lovely. There were a lot of things I liked about this book, like his introspection of love. I thought was great. His relationship with his father and understanding. So they're both dealing with suicidal ideation and suicidality. This one, trigger warning, the father dies by suicide, and this impacts his son for the rest of his life. And I think that's clear in this book, like the mental and emotional impact of an adult man, of struggling to understand and or accept, come to terms with the death by suicide of his father. There were parts of it that I was just like, so no. Like, I think there's a piece in the book where he says there were some Mexicans working on it. And I was like, what? Did they have the Mexican flag like embroidered on them? Like, like, how are you assuming they're Mexican instead of El Salvadorian and Guatemalan? I thought that was, I mean, I hope we can get over that, right? There was there's this interesting thread in here about kind of like a sex cult. And it was very similar. And I believe San Francisco is where it really happened, to a Netflix series I watched about a company that was very similar to kind of this sex cult. And I thought that was interesting. Very unfortunately, even on the Kindle, the bot. So it's also kind of cute that this is the beginning of AI, right? This is 2010 to 2012. And we're like looking back at 2025, where we are in AI. Anyway, well, they're training the bot, the chat bot. It's written in this really bold, and I cannot read more than a few sentences of it for some reason. It just gives me a headache. So some part of the book I realized that I missed, because it's this conversation that the bot's having that I just, if it was really long and drawn out, I couldn't read it. And there are some places where it's just like the whole page. Yeah, I mean, it's a decent read. And I'm going to say, I had in this week some really great reads at the beginning, and then a lot of decent reads. And, I'm here for decent reads as well. I'm happy to put this book back into a little free library, and I don't necessarily see myself recommending it to anyone, but there were some definitely points in it that I really appreciated exploring and getting this point of view and this perspective of. So that's it. Those are the 6 books, and it is now a 25-minute video, so not short. And this is why I had to do it before I keep reading on and on, because that's about as long as I want to talk without my mouth being really dry. So yeah, thank you for listening.